Welcome everyone back to the Pommy and Oz channel. We've got a lovely guest. We've got probably the best named sports writing website of all time. The owner of the ANNALYST. We've got the wonderful Anna Pav. You may have seen her knocking around Twitter. How are you doing, Anna?
Good, thanks for having me. It's it's been a pretty exciting start to the season.
It has indeed, and obviously you're a Cats fan, so you've gone from the ultimate high of winning the flag, what we all strive to, and I think the media have been a little harsh on you, being 0-3. I've been a big advocate that every game you've had a massive injury in the middle of the game, which I think, as a Carlton fan, that's happened to us a few times last year. It's almost impossible to replicate when it happens in game. How have you seen the start of the year?
Naturally, quite shocking and disappointing. But, 4 games ago we won a grand final. So you've got to have a little faith in the group that's being put forward. I just think, and I went on the Hoop Show, which I do every couple of weeks last week, and I was pretty harsh. But I think really it's only because we as Geelong fans, at least in the last 20 years, have grown to have such high expectations of the club. And that's a good and a bad thing. We've been let down at the final hurdle, but I think what I've learned in these first 3 weeks is I'd much rather be losing prelims than sitting on the bottom of the ladder. I think that's where I stand. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a Carlton fan, I'm no stranger to the bottom of the ladder and the prelim talk. It would be nice, but I mean, obviously, I don't think the Cats are as bad as a 0-3. I think you've come against probably a formidable Collingwood, which it would have been interesting if you didn't have the injuries at mid-game. I think that would have been a great game to watch. But you've got Hawks this weekend who surprised everyone. They got their first win last week against old Clarko. How are you feeling going into this game? Because this is a game traditionally that Geelong own this kind of game.
I mean, naturally, we've had a really good 21st century rivalry with Hawthorn, and they've slipped down. And I think what's really important to note is Hawthorn have unapologetically said we're going through a rebuild, which I have a lot of respect for. I think it kind of just like lets the club do what they need to do, but get a few wins on the way. So, I'm really nervous because what better time for Hawthorn to kick us where we're down, I guess. So I think it'll be a phenomenal contest. And yeah, as I said, irrespective of Hawthorn going down over the last few years, we always have a close battle, and this will be really no surprise if Geelong pull out what they did against Gold Coast. I think that's, the way we played against Gold Coast was easily the worst performance of all, because I don't like losses, but I could take that loss to Collingwood knowing they're absolutely flag favourites, and we still kicked 16 goals, and I could take the loss to Carlton because it was only an 8-point loss, and we showed for periods of time that we're capable, but we didn't show in the Gold Coast game. So, if we can, I guess, show up, then I think it'll be a fair contest.
Well, you've got games coming up. I mean, obviously, this next run, it's a weird thing. The way football is, the journalists now are saying, is this the end of Geelong? And we're getting the doomsday story. You look at this, though, quite possibly, I know the game's played on grass, not paper, you could be 3-3. And then suddenly, the whole perspective changes. The mindset in this game, are you looking for just win anyway against Hawthorn? Or are you also saying, I want to see the gap? Because obviously Hawthorn are probably the favourites for the spoon. And come the end of the season, I don't think Hawthorn will be above Geelong. Are you looking for a demolition, a real hot performance? Or are you looking for just a comprehensive win? Just win and get on the ladder again?
An ugly win's still a win. And considering we have absolutely nothing, I just need a win. I don't care how it comes. I don't care what it looks like. It would be nice if we could, put on a show and do what we did in the finals, but any win's a win. And I think just getting over the hurdle, I think there is a mental hurdle at the moment. There's something blocking them. Chris Scott talked about things being off with our personnel. He wasn't going to go into details about that, but you don't want that to be an excuse, and you don't want to hear, oh, they're off, their coach is saying that. You just have to break that barrier, whether it's a 1-point win or 100 points. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm with you. 4 points is 4 points. At the end of the season, it doesn't tell you how you won. It just tells you the points tally. But going into Hawthorn, we saw last week, they were quite impressive. They I'll give Sam Mitchell his dues. He's not holding back. These boys are attacking the corridor. They're playing good football. It's just not quite executed well enough. How do you think the Geelong side approach this game? Are you looking for them to just play their way and play with no fear, or are you looking to try and flood that corridor and just show a professional outlook? How do you beat the Hawks?
I think, well, they beat us last year on Easter Monday, and that kind of put us about 2 and 3, I think. So, you know, we've been in a position like this before where we're, you know, in an uncomfortable position on the ladder. But Geelong have the maturity, and as you said, Hawthorn are learning their game plan, but they haven't been able to execute that exactly right yet. And they make no apologies for that. They're learning. So we've just got to get them on our clean ball skills. That's what Geelong's known for. We're not actually known for our speed. So it's more of a game of, I guess, not keepings off, but we just have to take complete control. You know, good sides, you know, follow the pack, but great sides create the path that the rest of the pack follows. And if we're fair income about playing finals or, you know, even competing at some stage this year, you know, we have to put our front foot forward and not be chasing Hawthorn. And they've got the speed that will outrun us because our fitness has not held up in the past 3 weeks.
It's an exciting game in that proposition. You mentioned it there, like the great sides. We always say on this show that the great sides impact, the weak sides react. And it's something that I scream about, Carlton. I just want to see the day where we go in with no respect for the opposition and play our system and make the opposition react to us. And that's something that last year, particularly in finals, Geelong really did own, particularly in the final. You played your way, unforgiving, and that Sydney smash bash that we really enjoyed last year kind of fell apart because they didn't have the skill level to keep up with you. When you look at this game, we know Jeremy Cameron arguably is the best player in the league. He was phenomenal against Carlton, nearly won you the game, got you back in it. Who is the key man here? Because I've seen a lot of negativity about the man above me in the picture, Patrick Dangerfield, and I have a feeling that he could have a big game this week.
I think so. I think we really have to, we're running low on injuries, and I hate using that as an excuse because, you know, good teams just win. Great, you know, those successful teams just find a way around it and have that depth. But I hope we make some calls that are needed. I think Hawkins is playing injured. I think that's a really key point. He didn't have a preseason. I think we should just be, you know, fearless in saying you need a rest or you need a reset. There's no shame in that. There really isn't in the game. If it's going to make you more prepared to come in when you're ready, I'd much rather do that. In regards to Dangerfield, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him. I think he's taking on a lot at the moment, and to fill the role that Joel Selwood left as captain is impossible. That there will never be another Joel Selwood. That's a once in a generation player. We'll never see his leadership, his ability to unite a community in Geelong, not just the playing group. That I think maybe Dangerfield's feeling the pressure of that because you can kind of see in the way he's playing, he's getting in his own head, and that's not the right way to be as the captain, but you can't help that when your team's losing. But he needs to stand up and go, like Joel Selwood did, you know, we're never going to have another one, but come on, boys. There's 1 quarter to go. There's 10 points in it. Get on my back. Let's push through together. I feel like all the players are internalizing at the moment, and we looked like we were having so much fun last year. It was fun football. I look at the way Collingwood's playing at the moment. I know we're only 3 rounds in, but they just look fun, energetic. Every little 1%er they get around their players. But I mean, it's easy to do that when you're winning games of footy. But when you start losing and you're not seeing them getting around each other, that's a big worry. So, yeah, I guess bring it back to the point of Dangerfield. I mean, the MCG is his stage, really, at the end of the day. He's played some phenomenal Easter Monday clashes there. He kicked 5 on one leg in 2016 or 17 against Hawthorn. So there's no better time, and it's not just for Dangerfield, but there really is no better time for Geelong to just kind of stamp their bit of authority back on the competition.
Well, I mean, this is the game, isn't it, for Dangerfield? You mentioned it. I remember it well, where you just played him in the forward half. The poor guy could hardly move. And every time the ball came to him, he snagged a goal. This is probably the game he gets outside of his head and knows that if he can have a big game here, I think the rest will flow. It's interesting what you said about having fun. I always think the hardest place to be, and we saw it with Melbourne when they won the flag, it's easy chasing the flag. It's a lot harder, though, when you become the guy with the target on your back and everyone wants to beat you. You saw Gold Coast, they celebrated like they won the flag because they beat Geelong. Carlton got excited beating Geelong. It is a big scalp beating the Premiers. That's going to take a while to adjust because it's probably the worst time for Selwood to retire, isn't it? After you've done that and a new captain come in.
Yeah, I think becoming the hunted is a really difficult thing, but we've always been written off. But now to have the flag, and now there's even more media saying, oh, they've won it now, why should they care? Which, hurts your feelings. I look back to 2008 when we, lost to Hawthorn in that after winning in 2007, and that year we just played week by week and we just wanted to beat everyone, and it killed us in the end. We bowed out to Hawthorn in the grand final and we ran out of steam, and there's a lot more pressure on being the hunted physically and mentally because you've reached Everest and you've got what you want. You go, and I'm sure there's players questioning how they're feeling in their heads, but footy goes on. As much as I wanted the competition to end completely last year, let's give it up. We won the flag. No, it has to go on, and if that's their job, they have to keep playing footy. So I guess getting over that mental block's really, really important, as I kind of flagged before, because if you can't get over it just at least for one game, then you're never going to compete again. Life goes on, footy goes on. The flag, as much as I'll celebrate it for the rest of my life and hope to see many more, no one, the 17 other teams don't care. They care about righting their wrongs against Geelong last year and beating us. And they're hungrier because Carlton were hungry because we beat them. Collingwood was so hungry because we beat them in the qualifying final. When we face Brisbane, it'll be the same thing. Teams who finished on the bottom, who we didn't even, compete really with last year, they'll want to beat us. So it's coming into a new season, stepping up from winning a flag, but then also maintaining what you had and building on that. And that's really difficult. And I just hope we can find a bit of a groove this weekend.
And you talked about the different mindsets. Obviously for Hawthorn, they're going into this game probably at the opposite end of the spectrum. They're looking at Geelong and saying that's probably where we want to be in 4 or 5 years. We've got a real sustainable system. Everything is licked. And we know Sam Mitchell wants to be a controlled coach. He wants to play probably that old school Hawthorn way with a bit of modern day flair. Obviously, this game's like an 8-pointer to them. If they knock off the Premiers, it kind of validates everything they've done. Add the rivalry. When you look at this game, who is the guy at Hawthorn that you're like, if we can stop him, we stop Hawthorn? Is there a particular player that you're looking at thinking he's dangerous a little bit?
I look at their entire list and I just look at the youth, and we get pulled up on having older players, irrespective. We have a lot of young players in our group, but we don't play a quick game style. We got smashed by Hawthorn last year. It ended up being like a 10, 15-point win to them or something, but they killed us in the last quarter because of their young legs. So their run-off halfback last year was CJ last year, who absolutely dominated the whole entire game. But that last quarter, they went to another level, and we didn't have the fitness. And we were fit last year. By that round, we'd won two games already, or a game at least. This is even worse. We've showed we can't even run out a quarter. So I'm looking at the entire team, to be honest. I know that's a really generalized statement, but their run off the halfback flank is unforgiving, and that's because they're young. So we've either got to play complete controlled footy and utilize our skills, because we do have them, and the maturity that we have around the football and the football smarts, or we've just got to go in and just go crash and bash, which I hope we don't do, because that's kind of stooping down to the level of a team that's trying to figure out who they are. And we already know who we are, kind of thing.
That is one of the toughest things. It's something that, and I love you've touched on it, because a lot of people forget. There's a lot in the media at the moment about Carlton, about Geelong, and then comparing them to the Pies because they are smashing teams. And the likelihood of smashing a weak side is getting less and less as the years go on, because, as you say, bad sides now drag opposition members down to them. They flood the corridor. They make it ugly. They take away that skill level. When you go into this game with Geelong, obviously you've got the superior talent. There's no doubt about that. You have got a lot of injuries, though. We know Sam De Koning He's ruled out with concussion. Geelong seem to have played all year without any tolls. Sam de Koning's gone. We've also Jack Henry's a test. Do you suspect any changes in this game that may be unforced? You mentioned Hawkins earlier. He has been out of form. Zach too, he's never quite recovered from that head knock either. He looks out of sorts. Do you think that you guys might spring a surprise at selection table?
I look at a lot of them and they all really need a rest. I don't know, maybe it's just a premiership hangover and I hate saying that, but I look at someone like Brad Close and he, could have been an All-Australian last year. He just looks like some of them just need to go down to the twos and get their confidence back. And there's no shame in that, as I mentioned before. There's really no shame. I hope we decide to give Hawkins a rest. He just looks heavy-footed. He's 10 steps behind every play. He's just not competing the way that we know Tom Hawkins can do. And you can't blame age on that because he has actually got better with age, as we've seen. He kicks 50 goals a year. He's become ever more reliable. That's probably the only change I'm really kind of gunning for. We know DK's out with his concussion. We actually don't really have enough defenders to drop Zach Tui or to kind of give anyone else a rest. It's just kind of, this is a battle period and clubs go through it. Carlton went through it with their injuries last year. Clubs go through it every single day. There's much more behind the scenes that we'll never know about. So just push through. I think we can afford to probably give Hawkins a bit of a spell, let him just mentally and physically recover because he just looks battered. As much as I hate seeing DK out, he needed a break after the Collingwood game. He got bashed around there too. So they're probably the only two massive changes I need. But I think we need to just learn to win again with this team, almost as unchanged as possible. And someone like people are calling for Tanner Bruhn or they're calling for Jack Bowser's head and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to learn to play the Geelong way somehow. Unfortunately, they're coming in after we won a flag. There's even more pressure on us now. There's even more of a spotlight. There's no point making irrational decisions going, oh, he's never going to learn, because then we'll never get anywhere with them. There's a point we brought them. There's a reason we brought them in. There's a reason we brought Ollie Henry in. They're going to have to learn. You may as well put them through the hard yards now. And when the rewards start coming, whether it's a win or a few wins, then, we'll see, oh, this is the reason why we've kept them in. There's no point just being irrational. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I remember this time last year, Carlton 3-0, and I'll hold my hand up. I got excited. The media got excited. Everyone gets excited. Round 3 to another 20 rounds from now, we could be looking at this 0-3 start for Cats and laughing because they've won the minor premiership. They are that good. And I agree with you. You've got to try and continue. You've got to keep that same selection. That's something that you did well last year. But that being said, going into this game, everyone's having a beer at 6 o'clock. What are we looking at on the results? What do you think the prediction is?
I'm going to say Geelong by 10. I never tip against us, but I hate putting an exact score on it. So I'll say Geelong by 10. It's definitely not going to be an easy win either way. I don't think either team's going to come out all guns blazing. I think if we show up like we did against Gold Coast, we'll fall under the Hawthorn ugly football way, which, as we said, which teams do just to win games of footy. So, yeah, I'm not going in with a hell of a lot of confidence, but I'm going in with an expectation that Geelong will present in a way that at least we can try and win. Yeah.
Well, I think the win is so important. Getting rid of that 0 is probably the most important milestone any team faces in any season. We, as a Carlton fan, we've had that 0 for a way while as well before. So I know the feeling. But Anna, thank you so much for joining the show. Wish you the best of luck this weekend. Everyone, go check out the links are in the description below. Go and check Anna out. She is phenomenal at what she does. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. And if we don't win, I'm going to need some advice on how to take, your team not being good. I'm being a very blessed Geelong supporter. I need some moral support, guys. So let me know how you deal with it, because I've been a very lucky supporter. So thanks for having me on.
Cheers. Thank you, Anna.